Hey, what's up you guys? This is D with Level 3 Properties coming at you with another video. It's been a while since I've done a video since earlier this year. My mother unfortunately passed away. I was planning on doing this video before that had occurred to talk to you about a roadblock that could have potentially derailed my first real estate project. And I had a revelation / discovery that damn near turned my world upside down. And I would be remiss if I didn't at least share with you all and caution you so that you don't make the same mistake. So I'm going to briefly tell you about my investment property, the strategy, what the roadblock is, what the new information is that I learned, what the mistakes are that I made, and how I'm addressing the problems and adapting to the circumstances so that you may be able to learn from it, particularly if you're going through the same situation. Now, my first investment property is a duplex out in the city of Carson that I bought back in 2021. I house hacked it, now I self-manage it with tenants in it, and now it's fully occupied. So the strategy was simple. It was a long-term appreciation play. So you have modest cash flow and negative pure cash flow. Remove the mortgage insurance premium once you reach that 20% equity in the property after about 3 to 5 years, and then have a couple $100 in pure cash flow going forward. Now, before I get into the roadblock, I want to answer for you a question that you might have. Well, what is mortgage insurance premium, or MIP for short, and why is it such a big deal? So MIP, or mortgage insurance premium, is a type of home loan insurance that all FHA borrowers are required to pay. Its purpose is to protect lenders if you default on your mortgage. MIP is required on all FHA loans regardless of your credit score or the size of your down payment, unlike private mortgage insurance, or PMI. So now you're probably asking yourself, well, what's PMI and how is it different from the mortgage insurance premium you were just talking about? So MIP and PMI are both types of mortgage insurance. People confuse the two all the time. But the difference between the two, the biggest difference, is the type of loans that they're for and the ability to remove them once you've achieved enough equity in the property itself. So FHA loans require MIP. However, PMI is only applied to conventional loans in instances where the borrower's down payment is less than 20%. And PMI, on the other hand, can only be removed once you have 20% equity in the home. And essentially, you could just avoid it altogether if you're able to pay that 20% down at closing on a conventional loan. So with regard to the mortgage insurance premium that I'm paying right now on the property, that's $580 a month, and that equates to $6,960 a year, which is essentially just down the drain that you never get to see again. Imagine a $7,000 increase in your paycheck every year just out the door. So the rule of thumb is essentially to get $100 in pure cash flow per door every month on a stabilized property. However, if my plan had worked, that would have came out to about $110 for the property, which equates to about $55 in pure cash flow since it's a duplex, so $55 per door. And that would have come out to about $1,320 per year in my pocket, which, as far as the first deal is concerned, I'm not complaining. Not to mention, that's cash flow on top of fair future increases in rent over time, the equity appreciation you get, the tax benefits like business expenses and depreciation write-offs, and you get to leverage the property for future investment opportunities when you exit. That just opens up your world to more options. And hey, as the old saying goes, the Midwest is for cash flow, but the West Coast is for appreciation. So I'm not even going to get rich off of cash flow anyways, even if it was $500 a month. So you probably guessed by now what the roadblock was. All of a sudden I go on the mortgagee website to see if I can get the mortgage insurance premium removed from the property, and what do you know? I'm ineligible. So seeing as how I got an FHA loan on the property, only put about 5% down, and all this confusion between the MIP and PMI, I went ahead and did even more research, and I was shocked that nobody's talking about this. If your FHA loan was closed on or after June 3rd, 2013, and you had a down payment of 10% or more, your MIP can be removed after 11 years or when you reach a 78% LTV ratio, whichever comes first, for the MIP to be automatically terminated. If your FHA loan was closed on or after June 3rd, 2013, with a down payment of less than 10%, MIP is required for the entire loan term. And yes, my heart sank as soon as I read that. So, the mistakes I made. Number one, understanding the true difference between mortgage insurance premium, MIP, versus the private mortgage insurance, PMI, and understanding that you actually need 22% equity in the property to have the MIP removed, as opposed to only 20% to have the PMI removed. Mistake number two, relying primarily on podcasts and books. Now, I listened to dozens of real estate podcasts, and I've read about 10 books on real estate even before jumping into my first deal. And all of them are touting this FHA house hacking low down payment strategy, but all of them neglected to mention this one crucial detail. So mistake number 3 is essentially I didn't ask enough questions, or perhaps I didn't communicate effectively what my strategy was to the lender that was involved in the deal. Yeah, he probably actually knew about this whole thing that's going on, and it would have been nice to know, and perhaps if I would have known, I would have changed up my strategy and maybe the deal wouldn't have gone through. Who knows? But at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. I take 100% accountability for that, and that's a fail, and I'm willing to live with that, and it's a mistake that I'm learning from, because true winners adapt to their situation and they find a way to make it work, which leads me to my next point. So here's how I'm addressing that and adapting to it, just in case you're thinking about taking the FHA route. Just don't lock yourself in the first place. Just take that extra time, maybe even partner up with somebody, but get that larger down payment of at least 10% so that if you do go the FHA route and plan on holding it more long term, you can at least hold it for those first 11 years and then get rid of it at that point. Or just even go conventional and get the 20% down payment. I know it's going to take a little bit longer, but you'll save yourself the headache. You can refinance from a FHA loan into a conventional loan, ideally if you had made the purchase in a higher interest rate environment going into a lower interest rate environment currently. Because I got locked in at 2.25% and rates are around 6.5% to 7% right now, so it's not happening for me. Or you can sell the property, and here's a pro tip. So FHA loans are actually assumable. This means that a new buyer can take over the existing mortgage from the seller, essentially stepping into their shoes with the same loan terms, interest rate, and remaining balance. This is particularly beneficial when current interest rates are higher than the rate on the existing FHA loan, so it's a good negotiation technique. So the biggest downside or difficulty with that is that the buyer would then have to come in with a larger down payment only because they have to pay you the equity that you've already built into the property itself, which is going to be essentially the difference between the sales price and the loan balance that you still have on the property. So hopefully at the time that's not too much, and current market interest rates are actually higher at the time for you to justify assuming the loan at that lower rate. So the next potential solution is a good old 1031 exchange. Now that's when you sell the property and you roll the proceeds from that sale into a brand new investment property. And in that case, you're actually deferring the capital gains on that, so you're not gonna have to pay taxes on it at the time. So that's probably what I'm gonna end up doing in my situation. So this last strategy is more of an advanced strategy, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to anybody newer into real estate, but it's selling the property subject to an existing mortgage. Now that basically means that you're selling the property while retaining the mortgage, but you're actually transferring the title to the new buyer in simple terms. I would only recommend that if you were in a distressed situation where you don't have a lot of equity in the property, and so you're not going to necessarily need to pull that out, and it's more or less if you're in that situation where maybe you're underwater where you actually owe more than what the property is actually worth. So with all that said and lessons learned, I'm probably going to end up doing a 1031 exchange, selling the property, rolling the proceeds out into the Kansas City, Missouri market, looking to scale up a little bit, do some apartment complexes and larger multifamily. So I'll keep you guys all posted on that. Probably be a little bit of time after settling my mom's estate though. So aside from that, I wanted to thank you guys for joining me today again for another episode. A lot of lessons learned, a lot of growth was made, I feel it. And like they say, why do we fall down? So we can learn how to pick ourselves back up. And what are we doing? We're going the distance. So again, this is D with Love 3 Properties signing off. So take care, you guys, and I'll see you next time.